Components of a well-designed study. In a well-designed study, there should be a control group and at least one treatment group. Individuals should be randomly assigned to the control and treatment groups. The sample size should be large enough. A placebo should be used when appropriate, and the study should be double-blind when possible. If this is impossible, then the study should be single-blind if possible. Objective 2. Identify experiments in observational studies. An observational study measures the characteristic of a population by studying individuals in a sample, but does not attempt to manipulate or influence the variables of interest. The experimenter simply observes the results of the study or collects data in a survey. Observational studies do not allow a researcher to claim causation, only association. A designed experiment is a controlled study in which one or more treatments are applied to individuals in order to attempt to isolate effects of the treatment or treatments on a variable. Experiments allow a researcher to claim causation. Now, in a study about whether a variable X affects a variable Y, we call X the explanatory variable or independent variable. We call Y the response variable or the dependent variable. And a great way to remember this is that you have this word here. Explanatory affects the response. In this example, we're identifying an experiment and an observational study. Identify whether the study is an experiment or an observational study. Discuss whether the components of a good study were used. 1. For 5 years, the author taught an innovative intermediate algebra course in which students learned by working in groups. Then the author compared the proportion of his successful intermediate algebra students who passed trigonometry with the proportion of other professors' successful intermediate algebra students who passed trigonometry. This is considered an observational study. The author performed an observational study because he did not determine which students enrolled in his intermediate algebra class or treatment group and which students enrolled in the other intermediate algebra classes, the control group. The study has several good components. It has treatment and control groups. A placebo is used in the sense that the control group still participated in an intermediate algebra course. The study is single-blind because the students did not know they were in a study. Although the sample size is not stated, it is likely pretty large because the study lasted for 5 years. There are 3 problems with this study. First, the students were not randomly assigned to the treatment and control groups, so the 2 groups might not be similar. For example, if the author has a reputation for being challenging, weaker students may have avoided enrolling in his class. A second key problem is that the author may be better or worse at teaching than the professors teaching the control group. Finally, the study is not double-blind because the author knew that the students in his intermediate algebra courses were in the treatment group. Number 2. In a study to determine whether heart rate reduction lowers heart failure in mice, researchers randomly assigned 40 mice to a treatment group and 80 mice to a control group. The researchers injected the treatment with the drug that lowered the mice's heart rate. The control group was injected with the placebo. Then the mice in both groups were injected with the group that typically causes heart failure. The proportion of mice who experience heart failure was reduced for both groups. This is a designed experiment. The researchers performed an experiment because the researchers determined which mice were in the treatment and control groups. The study has many good components. There are treatment and control groups, a placebo was used, and there was a random assignment. The study is single-blind because the mice were not aware of which group they were in. 2 components of the study were not clear. It is not stated whether the study is double-blind, and it is not clear whether the sizes of the treatment and control groups are large enough. You will learn to evaluate such group sizes in a statistics course.